Finding words to describe what Diana Wynne Jones' writing sounds like was, and still is, difficult to me. Thinking about it originally, all I could think about was magical, which could describe many fantasy novels. But there's one word that I've always thought of when I think of Jones's writing, and that's colorful. In fact, way back at the beginning of this project, when we had to bring in excerpts from two authors, colorful is the word I used to describe Jones's style. And by colorful, I don't just mean that she uses a lot of color words, which she does, but I really mean that her books are always vivid and picturesque. Her style of writing paints a picture in the reader's mind of everything they're reading because everything is colorful. The dialogues, the characters, even the plots themselves are colorful. And Jones doesn't just do this by describing things. She doesn't just say, he had blonde hair and blue eyes. In fact, some of her characters' physical attributes are barely described. Instead, she uses the characters' dialogue and actions to bring out their color, while making the settings very descriptive and literally colorful. In this way, scenes are vividly painted in the reader's mind. For example, this is an excerpt from Jones's Howl's Moving Castle, and it is a bit long, so I apologize. It was quite a small room, with heavy black beams in the ceiling. By daylight, it was amazingly dirty. The stones of the floor were stained and greasy, ash was piled within the fender, and cobwebs hung in dusty droops from the beams. There was a layer of dust on the skull. Sophie absently wiped it off as she went to peer into the sink beside the workbench. She shuddered at the pink and gray slime in it, and the white slime dripping from the pump above it. Hal obviously did not care what squalor his servants lived in. The rest of the castle had to be beyond one or other of the 4 low black doors around the room. Sophie opened the nearest, in the end wall beyond the bench. There was a large bathroom beyond it. In some ways, it was a bathroom you might normally find only in a palace, full of luxuries such as an indoor toilet, a shower stall, an immense bath with clawed feet, and mirrors on every wall. But it was even dirtier than the other room. Sophie winced from the toilet, flinched at the color of the bath, recoiled from green weed growing in the shower, and quite easily avoided looking at her shriveled shape in the mirrors because the glass was plastered with blobs and runnels of nameless substances. The nameless substances themselves were crowded onto a very large shelf over the bath. They were in jars, boxes, tubes, and hundreds of tattered brown packets and paper bags. The biggest jar had a name. It was called Drying Power in crooked letters. Sophie was not sure whether there should be a D in that or not. She picked up a packet at random. It had skin scrawled on it, and she put it back hurriedly. Another jar said eyes in the same scrawl. A tube stated 40K. It seems to work too, Sophie murmured, looking into the wash basin with a shiver. It was a bit long, but I wanted to choose something that demonstrated everything I've been talking about. There are clear examples of actual color: green weed, black doors, pink and gray slime. And there's quite a lot of description used to paint the image of the setting so the reader can see what Sophie is seeing. But the only description for Sophie is shriveled. Yet the reader can still get a clear image of her as she winces, flinches, recoils, and avoids. These actions are just so easy to see in one's mind, and they tell the reader something about Sophie's character as well. Plus, there may be only one line of dialogue in this passage, but it adds to the image of Sophie herself, as she sarcastically shivers, I guess, as she looks at this 40K. It continues to add to the image that's formulating in the reader's mind. Now, it is true that Howl's Moving Castle is the first book I think of when I think of description. But even so, all of her books could be called colorful. And while there are many other adjectives that I feel could describe her style, none of them seem to work as well as colorful does. Are there any questions? Yes.
So I'm going to ask you the same question just because I don't have any idea, because I've never read her stuff at all, but now I really want to. But I'm going to ask the same question I asked Beth, which is, have you noticed a difference from when she started writing to the end of her career?
Well, there's a definite difference in the fact that she originally started writing for like adults, and it's like her first book is for adults, and it's not fantasy at all. Like, it's the only one that's not fantasy or sci-fi. But she decided that it was easier to write for children after that, so she stopped writing those pretty quickly. And yeah, I think it has definitely gotten a different feel to it as time went, and I think like it's gotten to the point like she's went from like adults to younger children, and now she writes kind of for the whole thing. Is like that's how.
Because her audience is wider now.
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's kind of fun like that.
So do you think? I don't mean to like belabor it, but do you think that she got more descriptive as she got further in, or?
I don't think, I mean, I think she might have, like, with the fantasy thing, because usually you would put more description in fantasy, compared to, like, her first book, which wasn't. But, like, in her actual fantasy novels, I don't think it's changed much in the description itself.
Interesting. Thank you. Anyone else? Sorry. Kind of jumped all over that one. Nice. Thank you.